I need to say something. Kyle's voice cut through the music and laughter filling the rooftop venue. He stood in the center of the room, microphone in hand, smiling like he was about to make a toast. My 30th birthday party. 80 guests. String lights glowing overhead. Champagne flowing freely. Everyone I loved gathered to celebrate with me. Kyle tapped the microphone and the room fell silent. Faces turned toward him expectantly. I stood near the dessert table, confused. We hadn't planned any speeches. This isn't easy to say, Kyle began, his voice heavy with manufactured emotion. But I think it's important to be honest, especially in front of the people who care about us. My stomach dropped. Something was wrong. His tone. His posture. The way certain guests shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes. Lauren and I are breaking up, he announced. I've been struggling with this decision for months. But staying in this relationship isn't healthy for me anymore. I need to prioritize my own well-being. The words hit me like a physical blow. Silence crashed over the room. 80 pairs of eyes darted between Kyle and me. This was my birthday party. He was ending our engagement at my birthday party. And then I noticed something. Certain guests didn't look surprised. They looked prepared. Chaos erupted immediately, but not the kind I expected. People rushed toward Kyle, not me. Hands on his shoulders. Sympathetic murmurs. Reassuring pats on his back. You're so brave, someone whispered loud enough for me to hear. Taking care of yourself is important, another voice added. I stood frozen near the dessert table, invisible. Untouched. The birthday girl became a ghost at her own party. My best friend Kara pushed through the crowd toward me, but before she reached me, Kyle's friend Mason intercepted her. Give him space, Mason said quietly. This has been really hard on him. Hard on him? At my birthday party? I scanned the room, searching for allies, for anyone who seemed as confused as I felt. Most guests looked uncomfortable, unsure where to stand or what to say. A few, Kyle's close friends, looked almost satisfied. Then I heard it. A whisper from someone near the bar. After everything he's endured with her, he deserves peace. Everything he's endured? What did that mean? My hands trembled. My vision blurred. This wasn't just a breakup. This was theater. Scripted. Performed for maximum impact. Kyle was still surrounded by supporters, nodding solemnly as they comforted him. He caught my eye across the room and offered a small, sad smile. Like he pitied me. That's when I knew. This was planned. Calculated. Timed perfectly to humiliate me publicly while positioning himself as the victim. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my couch, still in my birthday dress, scrolling through social media as my life unraveled online. The posts started appearing within hours. Not from me, I'd posted nothing. But from guests. From Kyle's friends. From people who'd been at my party. Wishing strength to a friend making a difficult but necessary decision tonight. Sometimes love means knowing when to let go. Proud of you, Kyle. Watching someone choose their own mental health is powerful. Respect. Not one post mentioned it was my birthday. Not one acknowledged the cruelty of the timing. Instead, they framed Kyle as brave. Selfless. A man prioritizing his well-being. Me. I was the implication. The unspoken problem. The relationship that had been unhealthy for him. The person he'd endured. My phone buzzed constantly. Messages from confused friends. Calls from family members demanding to know what happened. But I had no words. No explanation. Because I didn't understand it myself. At 3 a.m, Kara sent me a screenshot with the message, "You need to see this." My hands shook as I opened the image. It was from a group chat I wasn't part of. A conversation from 2 weeks ago. The timestamp made my blood run cold. 2 weeks before my birthday. Before the party. Before everything. The screenshot showed a group chat called Project Exit. 15 people. All Kyle's friends. Some who'd been at my party tonight. The messages were clinical. Mason, still think the birthday announcement is the move? Kyle, best timing. Maximum witnesses. She can't make a scene without looking unstable. Someone named Tyler. What about optics? Doing it at her party seems harsh. Kyle, that's the point. People will assume there's a reason I chose now. They'll fill in the blanks themselves. Mason, and the financial stuff is locked down? Kyle, handled. She won't touch anything I've protected. My stomach turned. I read the messages 3 times trying to process what I was seeing. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. This was a campaign. Planned weeks in advance. Choreographed down to the timing, the wording, the witness list. Kyle had turned my birthday into a stage for his exit strategy. But why? What financial stuff? What had he protected? I scrolled further through Kara's screenshots. She'd gotten these from someone in the group chat who'd felt guilty enough to leak them. There, near the bottom. One message that changed everything. Tyler, still feels wrong, man. Especially after you moved the money. Kyle, that's why the timing matters. Lock it down first, execute the exit clean. Money. He'd moved money. Our money. Dawn, I logged into our shared accounts. The checking account we'd opened together. The savings we'd built for the wedding. My hands shook as I navigated through statements, searching for anything unusual. There. Starting 2 months ago. Small transfers. $500 here. $800 there. Amounts small enough that I wouldn't notice during busy weeks, but consistent enough to add up. I calculated quickly. Over 2 months, Kyle had transferred nearly $12,000 from our joint account to somewhere else. I clicked on the transfer details. Each one went to an account I'd never seen before. An account in Kyle's name only. He'd been systematically draining our shared finances while planning his public exit. While letting me pay for wedding deposits. While watching me save for our future. My chest tightened with rage. But beneath the anger was something sharper. Clarity. This wasn't about love ending. This was about control. About money. About positioning. Kyle had orchestrated everything. The transfers. The timing. The narrative. The witnesses. But he'd made one critical mistake. He'd assumed I wouldn't look. Wouldn't question. Wouldn't piece it together. I started documenting everything. Screenshots of transfers. Dates and amounts. Account numbers. I didn't know what I'd do with this evidence yet. But I knew I needed it. Over the next few days I started reviewing our history with new eyes. Text messages that had felt confusing now read differently. 6 weeks ago, Kyle had started an argument about my spending habits. You're impulsive with money, he'd said. I'm worried about our financial future. I'd felt defensive, guilty even. Had I been careless? Was I bad with finances? Now I saw the strategy. He'd planted doubt. Made me question myself. Set up a narrative where he was the responsible one and I was the problem. 3 weeks ago he'd suggested I talk to a therapist. You've seemed stressed lately. Anxious. Maybe someone professional could help. I'd agreed, thinking he was being supportive. Now I realized he was building a case. Establishing a pattern. She's unstable. She's anxious. She needs help. Every argument had been rehearsed. Every apology had been strategic. Our relationship hadn't been falling apart. It had been dismantled methodically. I opened my laptop, searching through old files. Then I found it. A voice memo from 3 months ago. Accidentally saved when my phone had been recording in my purse during dinner. I'd forgotten about it completely. Now I pressed play. Kyle's voice came through clearly. The exit plan is set. Just need to protect assets first, then execute. My blood ran cold. This recording was from 3 months ago. He'd been planning this for at least that long. But there was something else. Another voice in the background. I turned up the volume, straining to hear the second voice. The recording was from a restaurant. The ambient noise of dishes and conversation filled the background. But beneath it, clear enough to recognize, was another person. You sure about the timing? The voice asked. Her birthday seems cruel. It was female. Familiar. My chest tightened as recognition dawned. That's exactly why it works, Kyle responded, his tone casual, almost amused. Public setting. Emotional moment. She'll be too shocked to react properly, and everyone will interpret her silence however I frame it. And the money? Already moving it. Small amounts spread over weeks. She'll never notice. By the time she does, the engagement's over and everything I've protected is mine. The woman laughed. Actually laughed. You're terrible. I'm strategic, Kyle corrected. There's a difference. My hands shook so violently I nearly dropped my phone. That voice. I knew that voice. I rewound the recording and listened again, focusing solely on the woman speaking. It was Becca. My college roommate. My bridesmaid. Someone who'd attended my birthday party 2 days ago and hugged me while whispering, "I'm so sorry this is happening to you." She'd known. She'd been part of it. Possibly helped plan it. The betrayal cut deeper than Kyle's. He was my fiancé, but Becca was supposed to be my friend for over 8 years. How many conversations had we had where she'd listened to me talk about wedding plans while knowing Kyle was plotting his exit? How many times had she hugged me while hiding this secret? I sat with the recording for hours, listening repeatedly, trying to understand the full scope of the betrayal. Kyle and Becca. Planning together. Coordinating my public humiliation. But why Becca? What did she gain from this? I called Kara, the only person I trusted completely. She answered on the first ring. "I need to show you something," I said. 30 minutes later we sat in my apartment, the recording playing on speaker. Kara's face went pale, then red, then stone-cold furious. "Becca," she whispered. "That manipulative." "There's more," I interrupted. I showed her the group chat screenshots, the financial transfers, everything I'd compiled. Kara studied the evidence methodically. "This is coordinated. Like seriously coordinated." How many people knew? I counted the names in the group chat. At least 15. Maybe more. And they all came to your party. Watched Kyle perform his breakup. Comforted him. While you stood there alone. Kara's voice shook with anger. "This is sociopathic." "It's strategic," I corrected, echoing Kyle's own words. "He planned every detail. The timing. The witnesses. The financial protection. The narrative." Kara looked at me carefully. "What are you going to do?" I didn't answer immediately. Part of me wanted to scream, to post everything online, to expose Kyle and Becca and everyone who'd participated. But another part, the part that had been quietly documenting evidence for 3 days, knew that revenge required patience. Strategy. Perfect timing. Just like Kyle had taught me. I said nothing publicly. No social media posts. No angry calls. No dramatic confrontations. While Kyle's narrative spread unchallenged online, I worked in silence. I organized everything chronologically. The financial transfers matched against the group chat timestamps. The recording from 3 months ago. Screenshots of Kyle's posts painting himself as the victim. I created folders. Backed everything up to 3 different cloud services. Printed physical copies and stored them at Kara's apartment. Every time Kyle posted something vague about prioritizing mental health or choosing peace, I saved it. Every sympathetic comment from people who didn't know the truth. Every lie hidden in carefully worded implications. I built a timeline spanning 4 months. It showed a clear, deliberate pattern of manipulation and theft. Then I called a lawyer. Not someone Kyle knew. Not anyone connected to our social circle. A specialist in financial disputes and defamation that Kara's cousin recommended. Her name was Helena. She reviewed my evidence for 2 hours without speaking, occasionally making notes. Finally, she looked up. "This is comprehensive. Borderline prosecution-level documentation. Is it enough? For what purpose? Protection. Clarity. Making sure he can't rewrite history completely." Helena leaned back. "The financial transfers alone give you recourse. The recording establishes premeditation. The group chat proves coordination." She paused. "Did he know what he was risking?" "What do you mean?" "Did Kyle understand that by making this public, by framing you negatively, he opened himself to defamation claims? By taking money from joint accounts to protect his assets, he committed financial misconduct." I stared at her. "I don't think he considered those risks." Helena smiled grimly. "Then he's not as strategic as he thinks." Over the next week something shifted. Kyle's posts became more frequent. More pointed. More desperate. Some people will do anything to avoid accountability. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Protecting your peace sometimes means accepting that not everyone will understand your choices. The implications were clear. He was painting me as volatile, unreasonable, unwilling to accept responsibility. People who didn't know the full story would read between the lines and assume I was harassing him or making his life difficult. But I stayed silent. Every post was another piece of evidence. Every vague accusation another example of his pattern. Kara watched his activity obsessively. "He's overreaching," she said one evening. These posts are starting to sound defensive. He was right. The confidence from the birthday announcement was cracking. Kyle was working too hard to control the narrative, which meant he was worried about losing control. Then something unexpected happened. Someone from Kyle's workplace reached out. The message came through LinkedIn from a woman named Simone who worked in Kyle's department. Her message was brief. We should talk. Not about the breakup, about something else. Coffee. I stared at the message for a long time. This could be a trap. Someone Kyle sent to gather information or bait me into saying something he could use. But something in Simone's wording felt genuine. Not about the breakup, about something else. I agreed to meet her the next day. Simone was in her 40s, professional and direct. We met at a coffee shop far from Kyle's usual spots. I'll get straight to it, she said after we sat down. Kyle's birthday stunt violated company policy. We have strict social media and public conduct guidelines, especially for client-facing roles. My eyebrows rose. I didn't know that. Most people don't. But making a public spectacle that generates attention and could reflect poorly on the company image, that's actionable. She paused. Several people reported it internally. HR is investigating. Why are you telling me this? Simone met my eyes. Because I've watched Kyle operate for 3 years. He's calculated. Manipulative. He positions himself as the victim in every conflict while quietly sabotaging anyone who threatens him. She pulled out her phone. I'm not the only one who's noticed. She showed me internal company messages. Complaints from coworkers about Kyle's behavior. Concerns about his pattern of blaming others for his mistakes. Warnings about his tendency to weaponize HR against colleagues. He's done this before, I said slowly. Multiple times. Different contexts, same strategy. Create a narrative, gather witnesses, execute publicly, position himself as the wronged party. My hands tightened around my coffee cup. What does HR need? Documentation. Timeline. Evidence that his public behavior was part of a larger pattern. Anything that proves this wasn't just a difficult breakup but a calculated performance. Simone leaned forward. Do you have anything like that? I thought about the folders on my laptop. The recordings. The screenshots. The financial evidence. Yes, I said. I have exactly that. I gave Simone copies of everything, carefully redacted to include only what was relevant to workplace conduct. The timeline of Kyle's planning. The group chat showing premeditation. The recording proving this was strategic. This is thorough, Simone said, reviewing the documents. Almost too thorough. I'm detail-oriented. She smiled. That's probably why he targeted you. People who pay attention are harder to gaslight. So he had to work harder to undermine your credibility first. 3 days later, Simone emailed me. HR investigation is moving forward. They've requested a formal statement from Kyle. Fair warning, this probably won't stay private. Kyle will likely realize someone provided documentation. I responded, I understand. I did understand. Helena had warned me that once I started using the evidence, the situation would escalate. Kyle would realize I wasn't staying silent. I was being strategic. The question was whether he'd understand the difference between my silence and his before it was too late. 2 days after that, Kyle called me for the first time since the birthday party. I didn't answer. He called again. Then texted, we need to talk. There are things being said that aren't true. I can explain everything. I blocked his number and forwarded the messages to Helena. He's worried, Helena observed. That's good. Worried people make mistakes. Kyle's next move proved her right. Kyle's family started contacting me. First his mother, then his sister, then his father. All with the same message. I was sabotaging Kyle's career. Spreading lies. Trying to ruin his reputation because I couldn't accept the breakup. His mother's voicemail was particularly cutting. Lauren, I don't know what you think you're accomplishing, but dragging Kyle through the mud at his workplace is cruel. He ended things respectfully. Why can't you move on with dignity? Respectfully. At my birthday party. In front of 80 witnesses. His sister's message was more direct. Stop whatever you're doing at his job. This is pathetic. I saved every voicemail. Every text. Every email. All evidence that Kyle's family was involved in the pressure campaign. But what they didn't know What Kyle clearly hadn't told them was the truth. The money he'd taken, the planning, the coordination with Becca, the months of manipulation. They'd been fed the same narrative as everyone else. Kyle made a difficult but healthy decision, and I was making his life hell because I couldn't accept it. I felt bad for them briefly. They were defending someone based on incomplete information. So I did something Kyle probably didn't expect. I sent a calm, detailed email to his mother. Not angry. Not defensive. Just factual. I attached screenshots of the financial transfers, the timeline of his planning, the group chat messages, the recording. I'm not spreading lies, I wrote. I'm protecting myself with documentation. If Kyle told you a different story, perhaps you should ask him about these. I sent similar emails to his sister and father. Then I waited. Kyle's mother called me the next day. Her voice was different. Quiet. Pagan. I had no idea, she said. He told us you'd become unstable. That the breakup was necessary for his safety. I know what he told you. The money, Lauren. He took money you'd both saved. Nearly $12,000 over 2 months. I have bank records. Silence. Then, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We shouldn't have contacted you without knowing everything. I didn't gloat. Didn't push. Just accepted her apology and ended the call. 20 minutes later, Kyle's sister texted, I owe you an apology. I had no idea he'd planned this. That he'd involved so many people. I'm disgusted. One by one, his family members reached back out. Apologetic. Horrified. Some angry at Kyle. Some just sad. But the most interesting response came from Kyle's father. His message was brief. He learned this from somewhere. Think I know where. I'm sorry you got caught in it. What did that mean? Before I could respond, Carr called. You need to see Kyle's latest post. He's spiraling. I opened Instagram. Kyle's new post was long. Rambling. Offensive. When you expose someone's toxic patterns, they retaliate. They twist the truth. They play victim while attacking you behind the scenes. I'm learning to stand firm in my truth despite the smear campaign. The comments were divided now. Some still supported him. But others were starting to question. This seems really defensive. Why are you posting so much about this? Something feels off about all these vague accusations. Kyle was losing control of his narrative and he knew it. Then everything exploded. I received legal papers via courier. Kyle was suing me for defamation, harassment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The lawsuit claimed I had maliciously spread false information about him to his workplace and family. That I'd fabricated evidence to destroy his reputation. That my actions had caused him severe emotional distress and professional harm. The claims read like projection. Everything he accused me of doing he had actually done. The manipulation. The false narrative. The coordinated campaign. I called Helena immediately. She reviewed the lawsuit and actually laughed. This is the mistake I was waiting for, she said. By suing you, Kyle just opened discovery. He'll have to produce evidence supporting his claims. We'll have to produce evidence refuting them. So we have recordings, financial documents, group chat screenshots, and witness testimony. What does he have? Vague social media posts and character witnesses who didn't know he was lying. She paused. This lawsuit is going to destroy him. Because now everything becomes part of the court record. The planning. The money. The coordination. All of it. What do I do? We file a counterclaim. Defamation. Financial misconduct. Fraud. And we attach every piece of evidence you've collected as exhibits. Make it public record. I thought about Kyle's strategy. Maximum witnesses. Public humiliation. Strategic timing. When do we file? Helena smiled. How about on what would have been your wedding date? Poetic justice and all that. Perfect timing. Just like Kyle taught me. Our countersuit was filed 3 weeks later. The day Kyle and I were supposed to get married. Helena made sure the filing was comprehensive. Every screenshot. Every recording. Every financial document. All attached as official court exhibits, part of the public record. The lawsuit outlined Kyle's pattern of manipulation, his theft from joint accounts, his coordination with multiple parties to publicly humiliate me, and his subsequent defamation campaign when his strategy backfired. Within hours, the court documents started circulating online. Not because I posted them, I didn't have to. Court filings are public record. Journalists covering local legal cases found it. Bloggers who follow high-profile disputes picked it up. By evening, the full story was spreading across social media. The screenshots of Kyle's Project Exit group chat. The recording of him and Becca planning my humiliation. The financial records showing systematic theft. My phone exploded with messages. Some from people apologizing for believing Kyle's narrative. Some from people who'd suspected something was wrong but hadn't wanted to get involved. And some from Kyle's former friends horrified to learn how they'd been used. Mason, who'd led the Comfort Kyle Brigade at my party, sent a message. I had no idea about the money. Or that he'd planned it that far in advance. I thought it was just bad timing. I'm sorry. Tyler from the group chat. I told him it was wrong. I should have done more to stop it. I'm so sorry, Lauren. Even people who'd posted supportive messages about Kyle started deleting them or posting corrections. The narrative wasn't just flipping. It was collapsing entirely. Kyle panicked. I could track his deterioration through his social media activity. First, he deleted the lawsuit post where he'd announced legal action. Then he deleted several posts about standing firm in his truth. Then he sent me a message from a new number since I'd blocked him. We need to talk. Private conversation. Just us. I can explain everything if you'll just listen. I screenshotted it and sent it to Helena. Don't respond, she advised. This is manipulation. He wants a chance to spin the story, find leverage, maybe record you saying something he can use. The message was followed by another. I never meant for things to go this far. Can't we work this out without lawyers? For what we used to mean to each other. Then another. You're destroying my life over a misunderstanding. How can you be this cruel? I watched the messages accumulate. Watched his desperation grow. Watched him cycle through every manipulation tactic. Appeals to nostalgia, guilt-tripping, reframing himself as the victim. But I didn't respond. Instead, I prepared my final move. With Helena's help, I drafted a statement. Not angry. Not defensive. Just clear and factual. It outlined the timeline of Kyle's behavior. The planning. The theft. The coordinated humiliation. The subsequent smear campaign when I'd protected myself. It included links to the public court documents for anyone who wanted to verify the facts. And it ended simply, I'm sharing this not for revenge but for clarity. The truth matters. Helena reviewed it twice. This is perfect. Factual. Devastating. When do you want to release it? Now, I said. I posted the statement on all my social media platforms simultaneously. Within minutes, the response was overwhelming. Comments flooded in. Shares multiplied. People who'd been silent during Kyle's campaign finally spoke up. I knew something was wrong with his story. The birthday announcement never sat right with me. I'm so sorry I believed his narrative. But more importantly, allies emerged. People shared their own experiences with Kyle's manipulation. Co-workers who'd watched him sabotage colleagues. Ex-friends who'd seen his pattern of control and blame. A woman I didn't know posted, Kyle did something similar to my friend 3 years ago. Different context, same strategy. Public humiliation, financial manipulation, then playing victim when she fought back. Others confirmed variations of the same story. Kyle's pattern stretched back years, across relationships and friendships and professional settings. He'd done this before. Multiple times. I wasn't the first person he'd tried to destroy. But I might be the first person who documented everything thoroughly enough to prove it. By the next morning, Kyle's social media accounts were gone. Deleted or deactivated. His professional profiles disappeared. His carefully crafted public image had collapsed completely. Simone from his workplace emailed. He resigned yesterday. Effective immediately. The HR investigation findings combined with the court documents made his position untenable. His sponsors, he did fitness influencing as a side business, quietly dropped him. His name vanished from their promotional materials. The systematic destruction he'd planned for me had reversed completely. Kyle's lawsuit was quietly withdrawn 2 weeks later. His lawyer filed a motion to dismiss with prejudice, meaning Kyle couldn't refile the same claims. Our countersuit remained active. Helena advised we could proceed or settle. What's the goal? She asked. Maximum financial compensation? Public vindication? Just making sure he can't do this to someone else. I thought about it carefully. Public record. I want everything documented officially, so there's no ambiguity about what happened. Then we proceed to a judgment. The court will review evidence, make findings, enter a formal ruling. It becomes permanent record. The process took 6 weeks. Kyle never appeared at hearings, his lawyer handled everything. But the evidence spoke clearly. The court found in my favor on every claim. Kyle was ordered to return all money taken from joint accounts, plus interest. He was prohibited from making defamatory statements about me. And the findings of fact, the official court determination of what happened, were devastating. The ruling outlined Kyle's calculated campaign of manipulation and financial theft, his coordination with multiple parties to publicly humiliate the plaintiff, and his subsequent defamation campaign designed to punish the plaintiff for protecting herself. It was official. Public record. Permanently documented. Helena called after the ruling. This is over. You won. Completely. But it didn't feel like winning. It felt like surviving. The social fallout was swift and thorough. Within weeks, Kyle was essentially erased from our shared social circles. People who'd comforted him at my birthday party now avoided him. The group chat participants faced their own social consequences. Several were dropped from friend groups once their involvement became known. Becca tried to reach out once. A long message about how she'd made a mistake, gotten caught up in Kyle's manipulation, never meant to hurt me. I didn't respond. Some betrayals can't be fixed with apologies. Kyle's professional life remained in shambles. The resignation followed him. Potential employers found the court documents during background checks. His side business never recovered. I heard through mutual connections that he'd moved to a different city. Started over somewhere people didn't know his history. But I also heard he was doing the same things. Positioning himself as a victim. Telling a version of our story where he was the wronged party. Some people never change. They just find new audiences. Meanwhile, my life slowly reconstructed. The initial wave of support had been overwhelming, but eventually the attention faded. People moved on to new stories. New drama. It was fine. I didn't need ongoing validation. I needed peace. Opportunities emerged from unexpected places. A women's advocacy organization reached out, asking me to speak about financial protection in relationships. A legal blog wanted to feature my case as an example of evidence documentation. I did some of these. Turned down others. Slowly found my boundaries about what I wanted to share and what I wanted to keep private. The birthday party venue actually refunded my deposit when they learned what had happened. We don't want to profit from that situation, the manager said. We're sorry we were part of it. Small kindnesses like that helped restore my faith in people. Cara and I grew even closer. She'd been my anchor through everything. The documentation phase, the legal battle, the social fallout. I keep thinking about the timing, she said one evening over wine. If Kyle had just broken up with you privately, you might have never discovered the financial theft. Never found the group chat. Never realized how calculated it all was. He was right. Kyle's need for a public performance, his desire to humiliate me in front of witnesses, had been his undoing. If he'd been less theatrical, less cruel, he might have gotten away with everything. The birthday announcement was supposed to be his victory, I said. Instead, it gave me the audience I needed when the truth came out. Poetic justice. The very public forum he'd chosen to destroy me became the platform for my vindication. 6 months after the birthday party, I was finally ready to move forward. Not just legally, that was settled. But emotionally, psychologically. I'd spent months processing the betrayal, the manipulation, the realization that someone I'd loved had seen me as a target, not a partner. Therapy helped. So did time. So did the evidence that I'd been right to document everything, right to protect myself, right to refuse silence. But the final shift came from an unexpected realization. I'd spent so much time analyzing what Kyle had done to me. The planning. The theft. The performance. But I'd spent less time acknowledging what I'd done for myself. I'd noticed the pattern. Trusted my instincts. Documented methodically. Protected my interests. Refused to be gaslit into accepting his narrative. I'd been strategic when strategy was needed. Silent when silence was powerful. Vocal when truth mattered. Kyle had taught me something valuable, though not what he'd intended. He'd shown me exactly what manipulation looked like. Which meant I'd never fall for it again. The birthday party had been meant to destroy me. Instead, it had revealed exactly who I was capable of being when threatened. Someone who pays attention. Who documents. Who protects herself. Who fights back strategically. Someone Kyle had seriously underestimated. The social media response to my final statement never fully died down. Months later, people still shared it. Used it as an example. Referenced it in discussions about manipulation and gaslighting. I became, somewhat uncomfortably, a minor symbol. The woman who'd documented her way to justice. The person who'd proved that strategic silence beats theatrical performance. New messages arrived regularly. From people in similar situations asking for advice. From people who'd experienced Kyle-like behavior and wanted validation that they weren't crazy. I responded when I could. Shared resources. Reminded them that documentation was protection. Some people criticized me. Said I'd been vindictive. That I should have just moved on quietly. That dragging everything into court was excessive. I didn't engage with those comments. Some people would always side with the charming manipulator over the quiet survivor. That was their limitation, not mine. But the overwhelming response was support. Validation. Gratitude for speaking up. You gave me the courage to document my situation. Seeing your case helped me realize I wasn't imagining the manipulation. Thank you for not staying silent. These messages meant more than the legal victory. They meant the truth had reached people who needed it. And maybe that was the real win. Not Kyle's downfall. Not the court ruling. But the ripple effect of one person refusing to accept a false narrative. A year after the birthday party, my life looked completely different. New apartment. New job opportunity. New social circle that didn't include anyone from Kyle's orbit. I'd started dating again carefully. With clear boundaries and a much better sense of red flags. The first time someone tried to gaslight me about a minor disagreement, I recognized it instantly. The deflection. The reframing. The subtle implication that my perception was wrong. I ended that relationship immediately. No second chances. No benefit of the doubt. Some people are who they are. The only choice is whether you stay and endure it or leave and protect yourself. I chose protection. Every time. Without hesitation. Kyle's name rarely came up anymore. Occasionally I'd hear through distant connections that he was struggling. Still trying to rebuild his reputation. Still playing victim in new contexts. I felt nothing. No satisfaction in his continued difficulties. No sympathy for his situation. Just nothing. He'd become irrelevant to my life. A cautionary tale. A chapter that taught me important lessons but didn't define my story. Meanwhile I thrived. Professional recognition. Meaningful relationships. Peace that came from knowing exactly who I was and what I wouldn't tolerate. The birthday party that was supposed to destroy me had actually freed me. From a relationship built on lies. From a future that would have been miserable. From a person who'd never actually loved me, just the idea of controlling me. Standing in my new apartment on my 31st birthday, I reflected on everything that had happened since the previous year. The public humiliation at my party. The discovery of Kyle's planning. The documentation. The legal battle. The vindication. All of it had been painful. Devastating even. But it had also been necessary. If Kyle had broken up with me privately, I might have spent years wondering what went wrong. Blaming myself. Believing his narrative that I was the problem. The birthday announcement, for all its cruelty, had given me clarity. The theatrical performance had revealed his true nature so blatantly that I couldn't dismiss it or rationalize it away. And in fighting back, in documenting, in protecting myself, in refusing to accept his false story, I discovered strengths I didn't know I possessed. I didn't need revenge. I'd needed truth, justice, protection. And I'd gotten all three. Kyle had tried to rewrite our relationship as a story where he was the hero escaping an unhealthy situation. Instead, the court records, the public documentation, and the social vindication had written a different story. One where a woman refused to be silenced. Refused to accept blame for someone else's cruelty. Refused to let manipulation win. That was the story that mattered. Not Kyle's fictional version. Not the narrative he'd tried to construct with his birthday performance. The truth. Documented. Verified. Permanently recorded. I'd reclaimed my birthday. My reputation. My life. And that was the real victory. Not his downfall. My freedom. The woman who'd stood frozen at her birthday party a year ago was gone. In her place stood someone stronger. Wiser. Absolutely certain of her own worth. Kyle had tried to destroy me publicly. Instead, he'd given me the audience I needed to prove exactly who I was. Someone he should never have underestimated.